So Jeff, last year you ran the Colorado Trail about a little over 7 days, and it was a super gnarly experience. So, like, what was the craziest moment you had on the Colorado Trail while setting an FKT?
Uh, I mean, there's a couple. I'm like, before we started really recording, I kind of noted that I don't really remember anything, man, after day like four. Uh, it's all a blur. But a couple of distinct things. I mean, probably the hardest thing for me was just I'd never been out that long. And I think that, the sleep deprivation is definitely a factor and just like being focused and, we were joking about how I remember a lot of crazy details after races. And in this one, I'm like, I don't know, man. So, but I think I think the food factor was really challenging. My family had a GI bug. I got the GI bug, didn't know that until probably day four. Um, so like whatever I was dealing with on day like 2 and 3 was really like affecting, my what I could eat, what I could like process. You're eating like 10,000 plus calories a day. I think the food factor was a really struggle for me, and normally I don't have a problem with that. In like 200s or in Cocodona 250, for example, I don't have a ton of problems. So I mean, occasionally, but not really. And so that was a really big one. I mean, I think the other one for me that was really challenging uh, uh, was just the fact of like, there's a point at some point there, or one, like I said, once you're into day four or so, you're so sleep deprived that you're like kind of fantasizing about sleep a lot, and it's like an unhealthy fantasy, because you can't get it and you can't really get more than the short naps and just to bring you back for a bit. And it was getting to the point, by day 5 or 6, like where, I'm just not, I mean, like even the naps aren't really bringing you back anymore. Um, so you're immediately tired again. And so the night times were really a struggle for me, because there was just these sections where I would see, through hikers with like in their tent pods, and I like fantasize about their tent and their sleeping bag and their pad and their like details, like weird details in your head of like you're playing this whole like movie set in your head where it's like, oh, I bet they read a book, and I bet they, are going to drink instant coffee in the morning and sit around in the sun before they start hiking. And, like all kinds of weird stuff that you just, the details would like play over and over in your head. You'd be like, okay, this is not good. I shouldn't be thinking about this. But it would keep coming back every time you'd see one. So I think that was really challenging. I think there was one section with Jean where he was pacing me, and I can't remember exactly the section. I think it was after we took the nap, the dirt nap, like on a pad. Um, we went through this big long basin, and there were like so many moose in that basin. And I have kind of a freaky like fear of moose. I mean, they like really like they get my cortisol levels really high when I see them. Because I know they like to charge. They're kind of unpredictable, and especially at night, and we were in this long, we were just running a drainage that was like parallel. It was like in a meadow, but on the edge of like a hilly pine slope, and there was like a ton of willows, and you're kind of weaving into the willows and then out of the willows and along the edge of the pines as they go up the hill, and it's kind of and it drops into a like kind of a creek and a basin. There's a lot of those in Colorado where there's like these meandering areas where there's like beaver dams and stuff like that, and that's where the moose like to be. But we kept running in and seeing eyes, and kept seeing eyes in our light headlamps. And you can tell a moose because deer, I mean, because their eyes are on the side of their head, right? So they have good peripheral because they're prey, not predators. And so their eyes are really far apart, and especially moose, they're like really far apart, and they're really tall. So like, they're like 7 feet off the deck, and you can tell, you're like, whoa, it's like floating up in the air, the two eyes and above everything. So they're just so big. And we would see, like, we saw a baby, like a calf, um, and with a mom, and it was just like, oh dude, this is not good, because they get really weird around their, if you're around their calves. So like we were definitely like, there's one point where I like had this illogical moment where I thought, like, I just wanted to get away from him. It's when we saw the baby, and I took off, and Sean was like, what do you do? I took off like 630 pace, at mile 500. I just like, I burned all my matches for like 100 yards. I was like, just running really fast and looking over my shoulder, and they weren't chasing us, but in my head, I just freaked out for a second, So like, I had that moment. I think that was probably, that was a really hard spot, because then I burned all these matches because I kept seeing them, and we probably saw like 12 moose in there, and I kept seeing them, and I kept having this cortisol dump, rise in cortisol, right? And then afterwards, once we got out of that basin and started climbing up in the woods, like, I had to take a dirt nap after that, because I was just I think I burned so many matches in there, like, just with illogical fear. I don't know, man. I mean, I can't believe I was just freaking out. I had a freak out moment in there. I'd say that was a really tough section. And then okay, one other one. They're all coming back to me now that we're talking about
Story
it.
time.
Yeah, exactly. There was the section from what is the section where I almost dropped out at Cottonwood, I think.
Yeah.
Cottonwood Pass. What was the aid before there? It's on the High Lonesome course. It's actually an aid station.
Not massive, right?
Yeah, I think it's
No,
whatever it was pouring rain. I slept in the back of Ryan's
Tin
truck.
Cup.
Tin Cup, yes.
Yeah, Tin Cup Pass.
Yeah, so Tin Cup, from Tin Cup to Cottonwood, I was with Jesse, and that was like kind of the height of like gut issues. I was having really bad gut issues. I couldn't really run. It was like misting, and we were in a cloud, and we were above tree line. It was super rocky. Like, you're up above tree line, that whole thing. You go up in this upper basin where you're not in the trees. We had bad visibility. It felt like we were just running in circles. I felt like it just was like Twilight Zone moment, because it was an all night section, and it was only supposed to take us like, I don't know, man. I want to say it was supposed to take us like 5 hours. It took us like 9 or something, to go 16 miles. And I was not moving well. I had to take a dirt nap in the rain because I was just so out of it. It was super cold in there. I had every layer on. That was probably the most miserable night of the whole week. Just the conditions sucked. And my stomach was off. And actually, that's when we were starting to figure out my stomach, that was something was going, trying to come up with a fix for it. Because I'd made a mistake, and this little backstory stuff, like, I made a mistake of taking Imodium. And if you get to see the film, I make a comment about, hey, where's the Imodium? Because I've got this GI thing going on that my family has, and I don't know this yet. I don't know that that's the problem. I don't have my wife on the crew. She's like the natural guru. She would have never let me take Imodium. But I was in a weak moment, and I took it. And someone had mentioned, I think Chris had it and had some, and it mentioned he had it. And so it was already in my head, and that's when I was like, hey, dude, you got that Imodium? But like, I took it, and that clogged me up for like 3 days. You got to be careful taking pharmaceuticals, in these kind of conditions when your body's in a stressful state. It's just like, if you look at like how like all the commercials on TV when they do pharmaceuticals, and then at the end they're like, may bleed from your eyes, and your intestines may fall out, and whatever. They give this whole list of side effects that are gnarly, and I don't even know how people even still take them. But after they give the list, but it's like it's way worse than the actual condition. But one of the bad things in Imodium, and people should know this, man. One is heart attack, but the other is one of the side effects is like impaction, meaning you're clogged up and you need surgery to loosen it up. So, I mean, that gives you an idea of like it's just like not a good side effect to be when you're eating 10,000 calories a day. So, yeah, basically, I caught by taking that Imodium, I caused like a cascading series of kind of side effects that I dealt with for days and days. It was like the worst decision of the entire week. Um, and not having my wife there to like be an advocate when you're tired, having someone you really really trust in your corner, not just, I mean, it's important to have buddies, and this is something we should talk about, is like having people in your corner for something like this, the right people, but also just like in general, like having someone that would be able to like troubleshoot and help figure things out. And so whatever I was dealing with, I think my wife would be able to fix it with bentonite clay. We've already discussed this. This will be in the kit from here on out. If you're ever having problems, GI stress, and hitting the bushes a lot, like bentonite clay is better than Imodium. Um, so anyway, I think you know overall that really slowed me down for like 3 days, and was definitely a big mistake, in hindsight.
Yeah, it's funny to hear you like say or mention all these stories or talk about them again because like I've been editing this film. I guess we should like backtrack a little bit where you ran the Colorado Trail last fall. I shot a film on it and we're releasing it. We're just premiering, I should say, this weekend in Sedona at the Vortex Ultra Marathon.
Yeah.
And so like you like speaking about all these stories is funny because like you had to relive it once, then maybe in your head occasionally since then. But like I've been reliving it over and over and over while editing. And it's funny to hear you like just talk about it because it's funny because like when you're in the moment doing these things, like sometimes things seem really complicated because you're tired and maybe a little frustrated. But then like talking about it after the fact is like, oh yeah, duh. Like hindsight is 2020. So it's funny because it's like, yeah, I shouldn't have taken the Imodium. I should have had my wife like helping with these things. And it's funny because I actually felt bad at one point. I think it was that trailhead outside of Leadville where I actually cut out some of Jen like explaining things to you. She almost like reprimanded you at one point for taking Imodium. And I felt bad cutting it out because it was like cool to have in the film, but it was just like the film was getting so long. It was like 3 hours at that point. And I had to like start chopping things down like crazy, which is hard to do over a week long effort. But
Oh yeah, dude.
there, there's just like so many crazy stories that happened during that week, like in things that were just, I feel like they're just like totally new experiences for you because like you have obviously done really well at hundreds and then 200s. And then this was just like double the distance of Cocodona, but like way more elevation and like double two and a half, three times the time, like time on feet. It was just crazy. It was like such a crazy experience to see you having seen you go through hundreds and 200s and then apply all those principles and having to kind of like learn on the fly and trust in people for something that's going to take a week, a little over a week actually. It's just it was crazy. Like, it was crazy to watch, and like the film was really cool, like encapsulating all that.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I think. I mean, when as I look at it, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done. I mean, it is the hardest thing I've ever attempted physically and mentally. Um, it just, sleep deprivation is a weird thing. You know, like to be able to still try to push and perform on like fumes, because that's when we recover, right? I mean, being a coach, like one of the things we talk about is life stress and everything else. You have to like take everything into account. You have to kind of look at all your stressors in life, and you can't like discount any of them. And in a situation like that, sleep's like when we recover. It's when we repair. And when you're not getting that and you're still asking your body to go do all this crazy crap, like to continue to push, continue to go climb this next mountain range, you know, in cold where you have to like, temperature regulate and all that. It just is really, really, really challenging. Um, and just kind of a mind game too, man. I just like, I think it really messes with you later because you want to sleep so bad, but you can't.
Yeah, Jurek talks about that when we're at one of the trailheads around Leadville, is the one after Twin Lakes. I'm spacing the name on it, but I was doing a stand-up interview with him, which is in the film, and he just talks about how like you're pushing your body so hard at elevation for multiple days, and then you do it's just like the elevation factor, then all these stressors come into it. So it's like it's not like you're just sleep deprived, it's like sleep deprived at elevation, while in this instance you trying to like fix your stomach and all these things that are going on, like all these factors come into play. Then you have like just little variables. Like I don't know about you, but like when I'm really tired, like a little thing happens and it's just like disastrous. I'm like, oh, it's the end of the world. Like I just dropped a gel on the ground, like my life is over type thing. Like
Yeah.
which is kind of silly.
I definitely had one of those at Camp Hale. Like, I had that moment of like, I couldn't really, why am I doing this? Like,
Mm.
I don't really want to do this. This hurts.
Yeah, it's funny like how I don't know, like just being beat up and so tired and stuff. But you mentioned in the film though that like, and I think this is like a really cool part of the film where like you clearly like worked, like anyone running that much for that long on the Colorado Trail is gonna be tired. Like I'm sure Kyle was just as worked. DJ Fox, who went out afterwards and did it as well, just as worked. But like I had a couple like hard rides and runs since the Colorado Trail where I'm just like, man, this is actually kind of miserable. Like whether it's rain and snow or just not feeling well. And I thought about that, like, yeah, like when you're doing ultras, like that's the most important thing. You say this in the film that like things are going to turn around. Like you just keep going, and it's like it's not always going to get worse. Like maybe it will for a moment, but eventually it's going to turn around and it gets better, and it always does. And like even though it seems like it's the end of the world, like things are just like falling apart. It's like, oh yeah, like things will get better. And maybe it's just like a small thing, like having like a hot cup of coffee, having warm hands for a moment. Like these little things like actually start like compounding and like it just gets better and better and better until you're finally done, right?
It is kind of crazy how like it roller coasters like that,
Yeah.
like where you can have a really, really, really low spot and think it's the end of the world, and then all of a sudden, 6 hours later, you're like, you know, going over the top of a pass and feeling good, better, and like all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome! Look how beautiful it is, or whatever. I had multiples. I had a lot of those type of moments where it was like, oh my gosh, look at this place, And then there's other moments where you're just like spiraling.
Yeah, and that's like definitely shown in the film because it's almost like when I'm like editing, it's like, okay, cool, like you're at Tin Cup and it's like this is the end, this is awful, this is awful. And then suddenly at Cottonwood, it's like, heck yeah, let's do this, let's keep going. And then you go up over was it Hope Pass down into Twin Lakes, and you're just like stoked. Like you're so stoked, like Jurek comes out, Jean shows up, and then it's just like, oh man, this is hard. Again, it's
Yeah,
just
it's
like
hard again.
up and down, just like
Yeah, dude, roller coaster.
yeah.
I feel like in the film I say like about 20 times that was like a really rough
Yeah.
section, like, yeah, I had a lot of rough sections, where you just like spiral for a while, man. It's really, really tough, you know? But I also think that, you know, uh, I don't know. I've been thinking about this a lot because I just coached a few people to the Monster 300, and I had three finishers there, and 3 out of 4 finished, one timed out. And I really, one of the things we talked about is one of them didn't really use a pacer this time, and he has in the past always. And we kind of talked about like how pacing, sometimes when you have someone with you, it gives you someone to complain to, and it's almost like better to not have pacers, you know, because you just have to buck up. You can't like go or sigh, or you can, but you don't do that when you're by yourself. That's a weird phenomenon in the mental game, or the psyche of the ultra runner, right? Is there's this thing like misery loves company, and you have it, even if it's just little things, you will complain a little more, and you'll like kind of voice your pain more when you're with someone. And so it's really a hard one when you're doing a supported FKT and you've got people with you the whole time, because you need them to carry some things, right? Because you need to leverage supported. If you're going to do supported, you leverage supported. Like you might as well be all in, right? And hardly carry anything. I think one thing, Kyle getting the overall FKT time, that's one thing he like embodied that entire you know, that entire week was like he didn't carry anything, except his poles. Like, and then even he didn't want to, if he didn't want to carry his poles, he handed them to his pacer, like they were handing him gels. That's where, in the film, there's a little blurb of him going, this is a celebratory gel. And he would hand me a gel. So like, little things like that, I think, go, like it's just really, really hard, um, to not complain, when you have someone there, whatever. So I don't know. I think that's a really hard one with the supported, aspect of FKTs.
Yeah, I think though, like thinking about like people that I've crewed and have crewed me and like paced and stuff in the past, it's like it's interesting because if you find the right person though, it can really be like a make or break type thing where you can have someone who doesn't know what they're doing and you can just complain. They want to hear you complain and they like just kind of like talk it up. Like, yeah, running 100 is hard, it hurts, blah blah blah. And they almost like amplify that pain. But then if you have the right pacer crew, which I've noticed this a lot in the film, it's like those people are just kind of like, okay, shut up, like this is what we need to do right now. Strict or
Yeah.
specifically speaking about Jurek, when Jurek came out, he's done the AT. Obviously, he's a legend in the ultra running world, and like he really just like was like, okay, like we're here to do something, and like I don't care how how pain
He
or
was
how
all
and
business. That's what
yeah,
I
he was all
love about
business.
it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
like really focused, but
hmm
also like really out of all the pacers, you know, uh he was really like at the end when everyone's tired, the crew's tired, everyone's strung out, so they're not like the urgency isn't there anymore. It is early in the first half of the week when everyone's still kind of fresh, but as like cumulative fatigue takes over and like the craziness of it and the newness of it wears off, the crew starts to fade too. And so for him to kind of inject himself on day like 4 or whatever, like all of a sudden it's like, oh whoa, he's coming with like he's done it, he's been there, he knows what's on the line, he keeps it focused, he keeps me moving. And the other thing, he really, really did push me. Um, Out of everyone, he pushed me the most. So um,
because I could tell like by the time we got to Leadville, we were all tired. Like, because it's after a few days, even the crew, like Ryan wasn't sleeping much, your crew chief at that point. No one was really sleeping that much, and we were all kind of tired. Like we were excited to get to Leadville, but you could tell that people were tired, just exhausted, and like it wasn't like I feel like it's like the same way in ultras, like 100 or something. Like the first couple aid stations, everyone's really stoked, and then by the time it gets dark, you're just kind of like, okay, let's run faster and let's get this over with. But then you amplify that over 6 7 days, and it's like, okay, this is really hard and exhausting. But then having Jurek come in was 100% fresh head. He was just like stoked to be out there with you, and you could see like the stoke in his eyes. Like he brought you Chipotle, which was like a steak Chipotle burrito, which is funny because it's Jurek.
yeah, because he's a vegan. Like
Yeah,
he stood in line and ordered meat. I was that was pretty cool.
yeah. But then
Um,
like then everyone was stoked after that too. It was almost just like, yeah, like Jurek's here, like let's get this thing done again. It's just like a refresh almost.
yeah, yeah, and I think the other thing too is like as it progressed over the last four days or so when he was there, one of the things he would bring to the tables, he would he was pushing me in weird like kind of like he was using psychology to like mess like to get me to try to motivate me. He would do stuff like run ahead and go, on a little rise where you would normally hike it. And he'd like get up on a rock and be like with his camera, okay, man, I'm taking a video, run through this, you know, run. And he would just like
Yeah.
trick me into running an uphill, you know, or little things like that. That was really, you know, like I don't know. There's times when I was like, man, he's just like whooping me like I'm an old dog, like I just. But finally, like you realize afterwards that he's just pulling tools out of his toolbox to keep me motivated.
Yeah, and I think that shows the value of having a good crew, whether they're pacing you or like Ryan, like in the pits, or whatever you want to call it, like actually crewing you at like a checkpoint, because it's like they know like they know your end goal, they know you, they know how competitive you are and what you want to do, And it's not like you're going to be happy with like running 8 days out there or something. They know you want that FKT. And you could see that in Ryan, like while he was like doing crew stuff, but then also Jurek when he's out there. And it's like it's cool to see, like to have like the right people for the right job that are going to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish, and not just having like, okay, here's a random person to crew, which is great, but if they don't understand your goal, and it's like everyone's goals are different, and like if you're just out there to finish the Colorado Trail, it's a drastically different goal than actually setting an FKT, and having the right people for the right job is like super crucial, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I
and
think
I
like,
mean
okay.
having the right people in the right place and at the right time,
Mm-hmm.
like Jurek coming in at the end was really helpful, but like in the middle, I sometimes like having Shad or John, both of those guys, I know them really well, but I've coached them a lot, so I kind of know who they are. I know what motivates them, and it was just nice to have like company, in those times when that's all I really needed was just to keep moving and have company. But as the week progressed and we started to like when you start to fade and the crew starts to fade and the pacers are starting to fade because John and Shad both pulled multiple shifts and night shifts where it was like gnarly, like they're not getting sleep either. And then they got to turn around and like carry a pack again, a bigger pack than I have, with more stuff in it, more water, and like carry some of my food. And like they were, no complaining. They were awesome. And they're kind of in the background in the film. They don't get a lot of like screen time, but I got to give them a shout out because they were like in the trenches working hard during this thing that really helped me. We were talking about Jurek a lot just because he was like the guy who brought me in the last 27 miles and just really pushed me and also just helped me like troubleshoot the stomach thing. So bringing that sense of urgency and but one thing I did notice that and this is what like you and I we've always done downloads after crewing, and we did a download. I think Ryan and I did a download. Jeff Smock, another one of like in the category of Shad and Jean did multiple shifts, night shifts, pacing, um, really helped during the week. Both of those guys are all kind of in the background during the film, but I have to give them a big shout out because they work so hard, um, and like it was nice to have someone like Jurek who was just ready to like no, we need to do this. Okay, yeah, no, okay, recognize. Okay, give him a nap. Oh no, he doesn't need a nap now. We're gonna keep moving. Like what? We're sitting. Like even those kind of things. Like, he just at the right time. He knew when I needed to like be pushed, and he kind of knew when I needed to be like. And it was good too that he was there. I have to say this. I probably complained a little more to my. Oh my gosh, yes, my daughter's a barista.
Oh, there you go.
I bought an espresso machine for her for the house. She works at a coffee
A gift
shop.
for her, but it's really a gift for you.
Boom.
There you go.
Yeah. My 19-year-old daughter is awesome. Um, I'll give her a shout out. Thanks for the breve.
Yeah, I gotta have her crew next time,
Two
dude.
shot breve right here. Um, so, uh, yeah, I think the other thing is I knew those other guys because I coach them, right? Jeff,
Hmm.
Jean, Shad, awesome guys. We're all around the same age. We all kind of click. And so they were awesome companions on the trail. But at the end, I really needed someone who's like been there, done that, could take control, was fresh in the head because he wasn't sleep deprived. Like Jurek showed up, and I have to say, Jurek and I have been friends for a long, long time. And this thing got us closer, right? We're closer friends now than we used to be. But we've always been kind of just running acquaintances in the pro scene, you know what I mean? And he was the man when I got in the sport, and he was a huge like kind of idol, you know what I mean? In the early days, he was like a hero, like he just was nailing it, and I was or new to the sport, and so for me, there's still probably a little bit of Jeff Browning in the background that's like wants to impress Scott Jurek. So I'm not going to complain as much when Scott's pacing me as I will with my coaching clients who know me really well and know that I'm human, like that kind of thing. You like, I don't know. I think there's sometimes when um, that you just need that. You need someone who you like really look up to, that you want to kind of impress. In that moment when you're really tired and you're like out of it, you want to step up because you don't want to let them down. And I have to say, there was a little bit of that with Scott, and that's why I was stoked that he wanted to come. And he had told me at Javelina, or no, not Javelina, wherever I ran. Oh, at
High lonesome.
yeah, High Lonesome. We had camped because Jenny, his wife, was running, and he was pacing and crewing. It was awesome because he was just like, "Hey, man, I'm available. Like let me know." I mean, he even stayed an extra day, because it took us an extra day. Stupid stomach. Um, we should have been like breathing down Kyle's record, not that direction's record. In hindsight, that bums me out a little bit because
Yeah.
I'm now in hindsight I know I'm capable of
Yeah.
getting that time.
Yeah, I think that's like the interesting thing about, and I've kind of mentioned this before, or at least alluded to it, is that like seeing you like learn on the fly is like so interesting because like when you went and ran, this is a couple years ago now, but like Moab 240, and seeing you having to kind of like have a strategy and then adapt because you had never gone that distance before and trying to figure things out on the fly, like whether it was like a toe thing or just eating or sleeping, all these different things. But then you amplify that to the Colorado Trail, and like yeah, you have a plan, but it's also like you need a plan B, C, D, E almost,
Oh,
and then try to work your way back up to your plan A, so you can accomplish your goal. And it's interesting to see like how you can go into something with a plan and like it seems so simple on paper, and then once you actually are like in the moment, it's like, oh, 16 miles shouldn't take 8 hours or whatever it was, like we were talking
nine
about with Jesse,
hours,
nine
dude. It was
hours.
so long.
Yeah,
I
but
mean, do
having
the
to like
math. I don't know what that is a mile an hour, but it was really slow.
it's not fast. And then like in knowing like you and Jesse are obviously like great runners, and then knowing that took that long, it's like, wow, you were really buried at that point. Then you factor in the conditions too, and it's like it's crazy. It's just so
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about fueling though, because you keep bringing up your stomach. Like what was kind of the issue there besides the Imodium?
Well, I mean, so my wife got hold of Ryan, my crew chief. They're good friends, so they were talking the whole time. Because Jen's like watching from afar. Um, in hindsight, I should have had her in my crew. I should have figured it out. I just thought it would be too much for her. It was a big week, and a lot of like gnarly off road driving and riding. So I didn't really want to put her through that. But uh, really, what happened is that my family had a GI bug of some sort. My daughter all was like, you know, had doubled over cramps, type stuff. And it was like definitely a bad, like little GI thing. And they had it basically at the same time as I had it on the Colorado Trail. So, probably was we all were exposed to something. Then that was, you know, percolating in the background, right? Viral replicating or whatever in the background. And then it comes out on basically day two of the Colorado Trail. We started on a Sunday morning, but by Monday, am I having weird GI stuff, like where I'm having to go to the restroom a lot, like in the bushes a lot. And all of a sudden it's like, well, this isn't normal. Like I don't have this problem in like a 250 and I'm out for 3 days. So it's like, what's going on? Like then I was like, well, am I eating too much? So then when you don't know that you're dealing with a GI bug, you're dealing in my head, I'm trying to troubleshoot this as a fueling issue when it's not even that. It's just like you're dealing with something that's out of your control and you can't control it. You know what I mean? You can't control that situation, but you're trying to. And so you're like, pivot, pivot, pivot constantly. You're like, okay, well, let's just cut out tailwind for a while, which is my norm. Like, okay. And then, and then let's cut out, well, that's not working. Now let's try to do solid food. Now let's try this. Now let's try just gels and capsules for electrolytes, right? Because I usually drink my electrolytes in one bottle and water the rest of the time, or water in the other bottle. So I'm usually kind of like sipping 2 bottles. And like, so that wasn't working. And so nothing was working, right? Because I'm dealing with a GI bug and not an actual issue from my fueling. But in my head, I was dealing with like this fueling issue until finally, like after my family was sick and my wife tells Ryan goes, I think it was 10 cup, right? Before we even go, oh, hey, dude, I talked to your wife. Your whole family has a GI bug right now. I'm like, what? Oh, he goes, that's why. Well, then we're like, okay, well, we're dealing with that. But then because you're like sleep deprived and it's like day, whatever, I don't know, 3 or 4, I can't even remember. You just like troubleshooting kind of, you don't have short-term, if anybody's run a 200 and been out for multiple days and done multi-day stuff like that with sleep deprivation, you lose your short-term memory. Like it's like being really, really like smoking a bunch of weed or something, like you're like, you can't remember, you can't recall in that moment when you're under the influence, right? So even though when you're not that way, you're fine, but I couldn't recall anything. So you don't retain like what you're talking about. So like Jesse and I were on this like thing in that 16-mile section after Tin Cup. We started talking through like, oh yeah. And that's when we were like, oh, you're backed up, So maybe like we were talking like magnesium and all that, but we got in and like me being so down and Jesse's been pulling multiple shifts. He pulled the most shifts in the first 4 days and like over and over. And it's the hardest shifts too. The biggest shifts, carried the most weight in those sections through the San Juans, big days. And so he's tired too. And they were leaving that morning. So that was the last I saw him. So this whole, me almost dropping out at Cottonwood kind of overshadowed this conversation this micro conversation he and I were having on the trail. And I forgot it. I go with another pacer. I leave. That train of thought is completely gone. But Jurek picked it back up. And that once he showed up after Twin Lakes, and that was like 2 more sections, right? That was 2 more big segment pulls before we started picking it up again, the conversation, right? If we would have just kept that conversation going, I probably would have figured it out and taken the magnesium and would have like cleared my gut up, would have cleared that like, backed up issue. We're trying to be PC on this podcast right now.
As PG as possible.
Yeah, we'll be
PC
PG.
and PG.
Yeah, we're gonna be PG, rated PG.
Kids
we won't go R. And so like it I think that we were trying everything just to keep me like fuel coming in, but then nothing's going out. And so it's just like, my gut was gigantic. I mean, I looked like a white trash beer belly, man. Like I looked like I sat around just pounding 12 packs all the time, of light beer. They go right to my gut. It was like otherworldly. I sometimes would actually like lift my shirt up behind my pacer if they didn't see, and I'd just look at it and be like, while I was hiking, I was like, good grief, what is this thing? It's like otherworldly. But once we figured that out, then it still took, I mean, Jean had to remind me of this. I just saw him in Boulder and hung out with him and stayed a night at his house. And we did a run together. And he was reminding me, Bronco, like it was like another 48 hours at least before, once you start taking magnesium, before you really were starting to feel better. Like you were still dealing with it because you had so many days of it backing up. So that was really challenging, man. Like, when your gut's so big that it's jiggling and you can't run downhill because it hurts, it'll cramp. It was just weird, to have the legs but not be able to use them.
Yeah, it's interesting because like it definitely slowed you down a lot. Like when you were with Devon, Yanko, you guys were moving fairly slow, and we mentioned that a lot in the film too. And like you just looked miserable, honestly. Like
I wasn't happy. Anytime you see me running, it was like I had these like I had these I felt like it was like a girdle. I had got these Under Armour like kind of slight compression 7-inch shorts to go under my running shorts, because I
Hmm.
have pocketed running shorts. I cut the liner out and I like to have like that to keep from chafing and stuff like that. And a little bit of support. But it has a big fat waistband. Like and it's got slight compression. And I was pulling that thing, like hiking them like high waters way up to try to like hold my gut from jiggling too much. When I was with Devon, especially, like I forgot I did that. I was like pulling him, hiking him way up under my stuff because I was just like, oh, dude, because I was just trying. I kept apologizing to her because she was just dealing with like the the low Jeff. I was like, that was a rough day over to Tin Cup, you know. Um, it's a beautiful section of like wild section. It's actually going in the reverse direction of the of High Lonesome course. So you're on the High Lonesome course. It's a sweet section. I mean, there's a couple of sections where it goes down to an aid station and gets off the Colorado Trail during High Lonesome, but most of that section's on the High Lonesome course going in the opposite direction. So it was like a really cool section. It's beautiful. But man, I just had trouble enjoying it. I was just like hurting so bad.
Yeah, when you can't run and everything just hurts and you're moving so slow, and at that time too, like you've been in a few days, so like you're tired. Like, yeah, it's kind of hard to enjoy how beautiful it is. Although
Yeah.
that said, the flying drone out there was incredible. Like you guys coming into Tin Cup was so pretty. Like to see you
Dude,
coming
it's
in.
such an amazing like that trail is like I mean
Yeah,
when I say in the film it's the most aesthetic line in the lower 48, I still believe that. I've never been on anything that long that is aesthetically that cool.
and consistently cool too, because
Yeah, I
like,
mean, there's the gravel
yeah,
road sections that Jesse and I had to run.
yeah,
I don't know what day that is, like day 3.
if even, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that section's kind of a little janky, but it's not that long. It's over pretty quickly.
hmm,
But everything else is just like there's so much cool like single track in the
yeah,
mountains above tree line, especially like collegiate west section is just really epic.
yeah. It was so cool. Like some of the shots in the film are from like even at the beginning, like leaving Durango and stuff. There just wasn't enough time for me to actually really get out on trail. So like there's shots from Kyle Curtin, from Peter Mortimer and a few other people and Jesse. And these shots are just so epic. I'm like, I wish I was out there pacing right now because like it's just incredible. It's so beautiful. And then like in the collegiates as well and everything, like everywhere's just really cool. And it's like this really rad trail that for the most part is just like a ton of just like bang for your buck immediately.
That's
It's
one of my
so
favorite
cool.
little scenes in the movie where he Jesse does the thing where you got to go way over
Yeah.
there.
And he's like
Like
pointing out towards Silverton,
we
like
got to quit
way out.
talking. Like he kept telling me we got to quit talking, dude. You need to run. But hindsight, I probably ran too hard the first 2 days.
Yeah.
Because I was ahead of pace. Like 3 or 4 hours, and I needed to chill. And in hindsight, now the other I think rough thing that I really dealt with was one of when you're downhill running, you really load your quads and especially your VMO, your vastus medialis, which is like that teardrop shape on bodybuilders. It's that teardrop shaped muscle right above your knee on the
Not so
inside.
much in ultra runners,
Yeah,
only in
I mean some
bodybuilders.
ultra runners, right? But like in cyclists too. But like
Yeah.
it's a big that muscle. Just it is responsible for that load and balance and stabilization and knee tracking, and it like gave out like that. My right side gave out first, and the left side was the last day because then I started favoring my left side or started running on my like leading with my left side more because the right side was so hammered. That was a really tough. My lower quad was just thrashed, and I think part of that was because I ran too hard early. Um, the first 3 days, 2 days, I definitely was like running the downhills too well, if that makes sense, like
Hmm.
too hard. I should have just hiked to, like any down, like where you would go down like a rocky stair steppy section. I would run those in in the first couple days. And later I was just hiking them fast, and then I'd go back to running on the easier stuff. And you don't really lose any time by hiking them fast. And I think I should have been hiking those the first 2 days. Every little big drop off section I should have hiked and not loaded my legs so much.
Hmm.
I think that was something that was a learning experience too for that many days when you need your quads to continue to operate. On day 6, um, you got to hike those sections early. You got to save them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like, obviously, I've never ran that distance before, but it's interesting, like, seeing like how important logistics can be. Like John, not Jean, our French guy, John, who did a lot of logistics with you,
Yeah.
like having those things like nailed down, even pacing, but like we've never actually done it. Like, it's hard to really fathom like how you're gonna feel like a week later or something. And so like pacing for 100 miles or 200 miles is so different than something that's 3 times as long, because like zone 2 at the beginning is a lot different than like zone 2 at the end. Like, I think at one point in the film you say you're running like 10-minute pace, but it feels like 6-minute pace or something, because like when you're
Oh, I
that
mean, like
fatigued,
on
like,
Waterton Canyon on that
yeah.
gravel road coming
Yeah.
back. Oh, dude, I felt like I literally like my RPE, like my rate of perceived exertion was like it had to have been like 7,
Hmm.
and I'm running like 10-minute pace.
Yeah.
You know, on a normal day, even at the end of a 200, that's still like that's an RPE 3, or a 2
Yeah.
on a normal day, even tired on the end of a long run or something, or at the end of a race, 100 miler, whatever. I might still pull out faster pace at the end of 100, but like, yeah, you're just like, you feel like you're flying too. I love that about, the Cocodona film was just out too. We've
Yeah.
been on that tour, and just watching like and hearing people, and like, Arlen has a whole scene where he says he's like feels like he's got fresh legs again. But when you watch in the film, he's running, he's like shuffling like a 10-minute pace.
Yeah.
You're flying, bro. You're flying. Your legs are fresh. It's funny. These multi days are like tricky. Like, it was a cool experience, man. But definitely like for me, definitely like found my personal like extreme, meaning
Hmm.
where I want to put, like, I don't want to push for that many days. I don't want to go do something for time or performance in that many days. If I'm going to do it, I'd rather just like go do it with friends and enjoy it and like fast pack it and
Hmm.
actually see it really well, and not be in a blur in the last half, and just really like take it in. I'm too old for that, to like just go to the well and like and not really even enjoy it. You know what I mean? Because you're in the pain cave the whole time.
Yeah, it was interesting, like watching the film afterwards, like I forgot about a lot of spots, and like just because like we were just going, like you get there and you leave, you get there and you leave, you get there and you leave, and like the names were just like they're all the same to me after a week. And so I imagine even more so when you're just actually pushing yourself to the very limit. You go through all these gorgeous places, but it's like, oh, here's another mountain at this point, and here's another stream, and more trees. It's like it's all kind of the same, and like it is fun. I was thinking about this the other day, that like how cool it is to be able to go out, and this is not FKT related at all, but like just going outside, whether you're running, hiking, you're on your bike, you're driving, you see things so differently. And like how all those experiences are also really cool. Like hiking is like backpacking is so fun because you can spend a lot of time in one spot, but then also like riding your bike through some place really fast is fun. Then also racing through a place is really fun, but you have a different experience depending on the modality that you use to like traverse that area. And like, so I imagine
Yeah.
the Colorado trails the same way. Like if you like spent 3 weeks or whatever, 2 weeks through hiking, it would be so different than
Oh
just
yeah, it
running
would
it
be
over 7
so,
days.
because you'd see it and you'd actually enjoy it and you'd actually
Yeah.
look around, because when you're hiking you can be like gawking around. When you're running
Yeah.
you kind of got to watch the trail, especially if there's rocks, rocks and roots, and like you don't want to fall. So you're more focused on what like head on the trail, you know when you're running.
Hmm.
So I mean, we still looked around because we're hiking all the hills, but and
Yeah.
still enjoyed the views, but they're more like, I don't know. Like I feel like they're more like you remembering like a drunken night. It's
Yeah.
like little scenes, but you don't really remember the whole night or something. If anybody's ever been there when they were younger, um, uh, I definitely have pushed the envelope a few times like an idiot when I was young in my early 20s. But uh, I do think that like, for me personally, I just found that like, one, I'm glad I did it. Would I do it again? No. I'm still that way. I'm still like, nope, wouldn't want to do it again. Um, but I would, but it excites me for like Cocodona 250 again and like Mammoth 200 this year. The 200s excite me even more after doing that. Because I feel like that was like really throwing yourself in the trenches big time. Like it's almost like, you know, that race was like 3 200s. I felt like experience wise, with
Mhm.
whether it's crew or whether it's like logistics or nutrition or like I just have a lot more tools in my toolbox now after that experience for 200s. So I feel like that was a that was a win that came out of that. I definitely, like anything, any race, all the races over the years, all the ultras, over 200 for me, I've taken something, some kind of a tidbit out of every single one, and I got you know I didn't get a tidbit. I got like a full lunchbox, um, coming out of the Colorado Trail that I will apply to like multi-day stuff, for 200 racing, because that's what I really realized that I like being out for 2 nights, no more than that. I don't want to be out. Now I would say this has been a good joke because I coach quite a few like people that like to run 200s, and so and some of them are like my back of the pack 200 runners, so they're out. Most of the races are around 125 hours, right? So they're out for 120, 110 hours out there, 4 or 5 nights. Um, and after being on the Colorado Trail and out for 7 nights, 177 hours, I can, with even for the Monster 300, you know, uh, the cutoff is shorter than how long I was on the Colorado Trail. So I can really relate. That's one thing I really like love that I took out as a coach. I understand what they're going through. I understand my back of the Packers. Like they have a different race than we have in the front when we're only out 2 nights, right? 2 nights is nothing. Like 4 nights is a lot. The difference between 2 nights and 4 nights is like it's compounded. You know what I mean? It's like exponential. So like, learning to like coach that and like understand the kind of pain that my mid to backpack runners and 200 plus are dealing with.
Mhm.
Um, it's a different beast.
Yeah, like it just goes back to I think like doing things and you can learn from it, then apply those principles to things out in the future. Like
Yeah.
whether that's something shorter, longer, whatever, it's like you gotta kind of learn by doing. And like I think it's easy just to like I'm just gonna read, well, I guess not blogs anymore, but like read like someone's Instagram or like whatever and like kind of glean information, which is valuable. But until you're in the actual moment, you don't really know like really what you need to do, and you just learn from it, and you can kind of fine tune things for yourself, because like what works for you specifically may not work for me specifically, although there's probably a lot of crossover. It's not the exact same thing. So like putting yourself in those situations, and you can teach it to other people, but they still to a certain extent have to like do it for themselves, right? Like
Yeah.
someone's going to go out for 5 or 6 days, you don't know how your body's going to react
And
on
you
that
don't
little
know who's going to get blisters and who's not going to get
yeah.
blisters and who's going to, like whatever. Like there's so many, who can't take a gel on day 3,
Yeah.
because they're gagging or whatever, like there's so many factors with like individuality when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
coaching. It's not a one size fits all at all. Especially once you go longer, once you go over 100 miles, it's just like the issues compound. And we've kind of jokingly said this over the years as coaches, that like little mistakes on day 1 come back to really bite you on day 3,
Yeah.
and if you're going to be out for day 4 or 5, then that's even, you're dealing with that for another like 50 hours,
Yeah, which is a
whatever that
long
little issue
time.
is.
Yeah, a blister for
Gnarly.
50 mile or 50 hours is a long time.
Yeah,
It's a
like,
little
well,
it's a little
like in
annoyance.
hundreds, you get a blister at mile 85, you can tough it out for 15 miles and finish, and
Yeah.
just let it pop or whatever. It'll be all right. You'll just doctor it afterwards and deal with it. You
Mm-hmm.
just kind of push down the pain. You can't do that in a like 200 miler. because you're going to be dealing with that for another 115 miles. Like you
Yeah.
can't. So you have to be able to like you got to have more tools in your toolbox. That's why I personally like to see athletes at least do 4 or 5 hundreds under their belt before they do a 200, because there's less like there's more room for error in the 100, and then you can learn from it, fix it in the next one, and once you can do 100, kind of relatively unscathed, and feel like, man, I nailed that, you know, like not really anything I'd fix. Then you're ready for a 200. But if you're jumping straight to the 200s, you're just gonna there's more than likely just gonna be like a lot of pain for
For a long time.
for a long time for several of them, and it's just not. You don't want to put yourself in that. I personally think I'd rather see someone succeed, and so I think sometimes that's why I love the sport. It pays experience, you know, and so just having more experience matters, and I think it's better to have multiple hundreds under your belt before you go to these big multi-day things. Like I said, it compounds. The mistakes compound.
Yeah. And then you get miserable and then you just don't ever want to do it
Yeah,
again.
you're not going to enjoy yourself at all.
Yeah.
You're not going to like even find little stuff that you enjoyed. You're just going to be suffering the whole
Hmm.
time, you know?
Yeah, like just kind of like thinking through these things and like just learning and learning and learning. It's like it makes ultra running so much more fun, or ultra whatever you're doing, because like it's just enjoyable. Like, we all like being outside, so like just kind of fixing these small things that are aggravating you can just make your experiences even better outside. And it's like, why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start to kind of wrap it up here, but we're gonna plug the film obviously that we're talking about. Like, so you ran the Colorado Trail last fall, film showing this weekend in Sedona at the Vortex Ultra Marathon. Are you running this weekend, or are you
No,
just gonna hang out?
I'm just training.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm only a couple weeks off 100, so
Oh
I'm
yeah,
going to
that's right.
try to get a long run in on Friday. I'll be down there on Thursday um for the race, or just for the event weekend, and then Thursday through Sunday. So
Cool.
um hanging out. So I'll just be kind of hanging out all day Saturday.
Cool. I think it's gonna be fun. Like, it's gonna be cooler, I think, than usual out there. But like, it's gonna be a fun day. We're gonna have a Q&A. We're gonna show the film, and I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah. And then also too, like, just because you mentioned it, Dylan Harris released The Chase, which is pretty cool. Like, it's a great film. So like, if you're interested in just like 200s in general, I think that's a great film to watch, to see like people's different personalities and ways of approaching things. And then like also my film, obviously, you're putting out, like, I think there's a lot of good films out right now, and it's cool to see people making great stuff. So I just wanted to plug
I
them.
love that there's bigger and longer stuff coming out, right?
Me
I
too.
think yours is what? How many minutes?
Like 70.
Yeah, like 70 minutes. Dylan's is like an hour and 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Um it's a really well done film. I think it's going to be out on YouTube
Cool.
soon, for free, because the tour's pretty much done now. I mean, as far as like Aravaipa's part of the tour, I think there were
Mm-hmm.
some host cities that stepped up, but I think they're releasing it right before Cocodona to YouTube.
Cool.
So, but our film will be out to help benefit Warrior Trail Foundation for a while. So they'll be behind a donation wall to be able to watch it, unless you come to one of these events. So come to one of these events, throw Warrior Trail Foundation a small donation or something, and help support veterans with PTSD, uh, get trail therapy. Um, and Yeah, we're really excited to put this film out. I'm excited for it to be out. Um, I've had a lot of people on the Chased film tour asking about the Colorado Trail. When are you having that come out? Because they had heard it was coming out. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for that to hit. And it looks like we're working on some other maybe showings, like more public showings. There might be one in Flagstaff in May. So I'm not sure how long we'll be behind a donation wall, but that's to be determined. We'll figure that out, and we're Warrior Trails figuring that out. At some point, though, it will be available in the future, down the road. It will be available on my YouTube channel for free. But initially, we want to try to continue to fundraise for Warrior Trail Foundation.
Yeah, like, speaking of Warrior Trail, we should probably bring that up real quick. That like there were a few guys that came out to help crew and stuff that are vets with PTSD that have kind of like found some help through trail running, and that's why Chris started the foundation, just to like, because like he just found value in like being outside in nature and everything. And I think we all kind of know that like we go outside and we feel better. And so like if you amplify any sort of like maybe trauma you've had in the past and you apply that to like to vets with PTSD, it's like you can see how beneficial going outside can be and like being part of a strong community. And that is something I tried to emphasize in the film because I think it's really important, is that like having a strong community of people that like you're doing something hard with is like, it's not misery loves company, but it's like you can find value in helping other people in doing hard things. And I think that's really important because you find purpose and value. And that's kind of like why we like ultra running, to like push ourselves like kind of outside of our comfort zones, but then also connect with people. And it's a cool way to connect and to help other people. And like Jurek says that in the film as well, that like helping someone, like helping you do the Colorado Trail is like just as like fulfilling as doing it yourself. Like it's cool to help somebody do something hard. And like it's so fun to like crew people because like you take or you gain so much from it. And it sounds kind of selfish when I say it that way, that like, oh, I just want to help you. I want to help crew you because I feel so good afterwards. But like you do, like it's like human nature, and it's really cool.
Yeah, it is. It's like there is a, we are social creatures, and I think this has been a conversation piece for a long, long time since social media showed up. Like, right, social media tends to almost isolate us,
Hmm.
even though it's quote
Ironically.
social. Like, it's a misnomer or whatever.
Yeah.
It is it doesn't necessarily, it's not really true social, right? True social is like us being in person, hanging out together, seeing and feeling someone else's pain, helping them through that pain, whatever. And the ultra running is kind of like we put ourselves through a lot of pain, and
On
we
purpose.
watch each other go through that pain, both mentally, physically, all of it, right? Emotionally. And so we're always like pushing ourselves to do something crazy. And then we got friends helping us along the way, telling us it's all right, or shut up and get up, get out of the chair, get moving, dude, or whatever it is, like it. That's what's cool about our sport. I think that's one of the reasons that um, I think this is the beauty of Warrior Trail Foundation, right? Of what Chris has created, with this, like helping, veterans get coaching to keep them like one training smart and training intelligently so they don't have setbacks, or we're minimizing. I mean, that's what we're trying to do as coaches. We're trying to get you consistent. We're trying to find where you are in this place in time as an athlete, whether it's a beginner or a novice or intermediate or advanced. We're just trying to find out where you are in that space and time as an athlete, help you figure out how can we keep you training consistently and you don't have setbacks, because consistency is key, right, to training for these things. So just, getting out the door every day and like, or 6 days a week, and like, and doing that sport, which one keeps you in the community and it keeps you from being isolated, because one, you have to ask for help. You have to ask, like, hey, will you crew me? Hey, will you pace me? Hey, will you do this? Will you do that? Right? Like there's there, and then this is one of the only sports and races, especially, where like the back of the pack, the winner and the last person are many times hanging out at the finish line together. Right? That's a rare thing in sport, right? Think of any other pro sport, where the pros are whisked away, right? They're whisked out of like the public eye. They get some photo ops and they're gone, right? They might get a couple interviews with media and they're gone. They're whisked out on a helicopter, or they're whisked out in a car, where we hang out at the finish line, or at least I do. Not every pro will. Some are wrapped up in their own scene, and that's sad. If you're a pro athlete and you hear this and you do that, quit doing it. You shouldn't do it. And there's sometimes when we have other obligations and family stuff that we have to bolt for, we can't stay till the very end, you know. But like I try to hang out whenever at all possible. I'm trying to stay at the finish line. I want to see the last person finish. I think it's cool. The golden hour is my favorite part of ultras. Is that last hour before the cutoff. That's one of my favorite times at Cocodona 250. Being a local race here, just watching that golden hour, and then maybe the last one or two finishers come in barely under the cutoff. They've been out for 125 hours. 124 and change. It's just like crazy, that that they persevere through that thing, somehow they get there. It's awesome to watch. It'll make you cry. So I love that about our sport.
Yeah, it's wild. Like sometimes when I'm on like a bad run or something, I'm like, man, I'm 10 miles in, I just want to quit. And then I'm like, what if I were like at Cocodona right now, like 240 miles in or something, and just I don't know, like you just kind of start extrapolating things, and it's crazy to see like how deep humans can go. And I think it's important to put ourselves in these situations, whether it's like something far like the Colorado Trail or Cocodona, or even something shorter, as long as we're pushing our own limits. I think that's really
It
important.
could be just your first 50K.
Exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that at all.
No, no,
Yeah,
I mean, we all had to have our first 50K.
yeah.
Mine was just a long, long time ago. It was just, I mean, we've all had our first 50K, and that's just like the nature of our sport, and you progress.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I don't think there's anything wrong either with running like a 50K or 100, 200, whatever. It's like they're all like hard events and they're all awesome. So,
I always find that no matter what, because there's a mental perspective or a mental, whenever you go into something, there's a mental expectation, right?
mhm.
And so, like, even when I run 50Ks, still feel like they're fucking hard and long.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
like, yeah, because that's the perspective for the day. You've set that limiter on your brain that I'm
Mhm.
running 31 miles, right? Where it's just as hard as sometimes running 100 miles, Um, so it's a matter of perspective on the day.
Yeah, definitely. I think perspective is huge. But yeah, let's wrap it up here. See everybody Saturday in Sedona. Where are we showing the film at? I don't remember the name of the place.
It's at the finish line. I should know this
I should
from.
know it too.
Hold
I
on,
should
I'll
I
tell
should
you.
have had it pulled up before I even said it.
Yeah, right.
But it's gonna
Uh,
be this Saturday in Sedona at this finish line Vortex Ultra Marathon. I'm just gonna keep talking.
yeah, it is. I'm looking at emails right now. It is Yavapai College Sedona Center. Uh, so it's Arts Village Drive in Sedona. That's where the finish line is. There's gonna be a finish line happy hour. I think we're showing the film at 4 p.m. on Saturday, and then I'll do Q&A afterwards. Be around hanging out for happy hour and post race party.
Cool. See everybody there.
Yeah, giddy up.